Welcome to the Salt Strong Podcast, disrupting fishing entertainment as you know it. Prepare to laugh. Prepare to get to know fishing legends in a whole new and unfiltered way. And on occasion, you might even learn a thing or two about fishing. Here's your host, Joe Simons. Like diamonds.
Land-based fishing spots galore. Hey everybody, Joe Simons, Like Diamonds, back again with the Salt Strong Podcast. And I'm going to be going from Texas all throughout the Gulf, through Florida, up in the Carolinas, Virginia, talking about this brand new layer inside of Smart Fishing Spots that instantly reveals, I'll just do it right now while we're talking, instantly reveals every single public piece of property out there. This is going to be game changing for any of you that go on vacation or any of you that just want to go fishing on a lunch break and want to know where you can legally go fish on land. This is going to be game changing for all of us that don't have boats, right? Or want to take a kid out and don't have the time to go launch a boat and do all the things that go with that. This is something that I've wished has been around forever. And really, that's how we developed Smart Fishing Spots, the app. If you don't know about it, it's essentially now like 16 apps in one, everything from tides and weather and wind and all these different layers. Obviously, Smart Spots is what got so much attention around Smart Fishing Spots. Those are the spots that kind of highlight where you should go fishing. I have them all turned off right here, right now. But one thing I always wish is like, man, I wish we had all the different kind of spots highlighted where you could legally go fish. And if you don't know anything about like public land or private land, there are some apps that do it, like in the hunting space, a company called Onyx, and there's a couple other ones in the hunting space that have turned into pretty big businesses and they have more than just this feature, but that was one of the main features they had is, out west, like in Wyoming, Montana, and places like that, a lot of land, right? It's not like Florida that for the most part is kind of everything's built, right? And you could see, meaning you don't just drive down I-4 and have no idea who owns any of this stuff. For the most part, it's pretty clear. But if you've ever been out west, I mean, you sometimes could be driving for hours and not see any houses or any signs of who owns anything. And a lot of hunters were like, well, hey, I'd be cool if I could see who owns this stuff. Maybe it is public. Maybe I'm allowed to hunt there. And vice versa. If it is private, maybe I can reach out to that landowner and see if I could form a lease with them or even get permission to hunt on the property. And it opened up a ton of doors for those in the hunting space. And a lot of real estate agents use the private land part. That's where you can see exactly who owns each piece of property. You get to see how many acres it is, who owns it. If it's a trust, you get to see everything on there. And so I'm so pumped about this. And if you are listening and want to go watch this, I am doing this on video as well. It'll be on YouTube channel or at saltstrong.com on the blog. Just do a little search for land-based podcast or public property podcast, and this should pop up. But let's just kind of dive in, and I'll walk you through the steps, and we'll kind of go state by state and just look at it so you guys can get an idea. So I'm in Tampa. Let's just say you were on vacation, staying in like Apollo Beach, and you brought a rod, but no boat, and really just wanted to know where you could fish. So in seconds, if I go down the layers, I'm going to turn it off so you can see it, and I hit public land. So it's towards the bottom of all these layers we have, and I hit public land. And boo, bam, sham. I mean, in seconds there, every single public piece of property is now open. I could see this is, 2,600 acres. I mean, kind of hard to miss this one, but there's a lot of really, really small ones that have water access. This is Curiosity Creek Preserve. Never even heard of it. It's actually 199 acres. Had no idea. And all of these spots here, guys, and there is a river that goes through that one in particular. These are areas that you can legally go fish and legally go have a good time and not have to worry about someone bothering you, etc. It is wild how many different spots are out there. And this is inland as well. Our office, our Salt Strong and Fish Strong office is actually in Winter Haven, Florida. And I found some areas around there, around some of the bigger lakes that were public property that you're legally allowed. And I just assumed someone owned them and they didn't. So really, really fascinating. And you could spend hours, just looking at this and finding all these little hidden little gems like, wow, I didn't know that was public. And some of these, the coastal ones obviously are going to get a lot of attention, right? Like here's one, here's a little park that's only 2 acres and it's right there on the water. And I guarantee if you've never driven back in these little neighborhoods here, you probably had no idea this was public. I mean, how cool is that? It's a little 2-acre park right there on the water. You could launch a kayak there. You could wade fish out here. I mean, really, 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 really cool what this does. And then let me just turn this off real quick. In the private land, it's saying I got to zoom in because there's so many of these. Let's just stick with that same area here. And now you can see all these little green, these are little plot lines here. You can see who owns it. So I can see exactly who owns it, the year built, what city and state it's in, obviously the address. We're changing the square feet over to acres. So it'll be like that one would be 4 acres. But there's a lot of times I love using this just more out of curiosity. I'm not a real estate agent. I'm not really trying to buy property, but I love going around the lakes in Winter Haven in the pontoon boat with the family and like, I wonder who owns that house. And you just, pull up the app. I got an app called Landglide. They charge $100 just for this one feature, like just to see who owns every single piece of property out there. And obviously I'm going to be canceling that subscription because I don't need it anymore. I got it right here. But I mean, how cool is this? You can see every single parcel, and it's also nice. So if you were fishing out here, like this one's really interesting. So have you ever heard some of the stories about, people getting yelled at, or maybe it's happened to you as an angler? If let's just say you're fishing right here off of this dock, and this person comes out, and Peter here comes out and starts yelling at you and saying, "Oh, this is my property," and you can like pull up the app, like actually it's not. Where in this case though, for whatever reason, maybe it was because of the year it was built, but at least according to this, and most of these are accurate, this property line does go out in the water. Now, there are still some gray areas, meaning if you're floating, they can't own the water per se. So if you're floating, they're going to have a really tough time trying to, even a cop would be like, come on, you don't own the water. But there are some, older properties, especially with shifts and sand and water and hurricanes and stuff that they do legally and technically own way past their dock. However, unless you're wading in there or have your feet on the ground, you're not necessarily trespassing. But either way, we're not attorneys. Don't use this as law. But either way, it gives you an idea that, oh man, this person is right. Maybe I shouldn't fire back at them so aggressively and just kind of move over to the next dock. But anyhow, really, really, really fascinating. Let me go ahead and turn that one off because that one takes up a ton of juice trying to think. And what we'll do is we'll start over in Texas just so you can see, because I hear from a lot of you watch these podcasts like, oh, well, hey, you stayed the majority of the time showing examples in Florida. So I'm going to change that up. We're going to go public land, and I'm not going to focus on all these other layers, the smart spots and the reefs and the oyster beds. We've already done plenty of podcasts on that. Just want to give you an idea. So I'm going to zoom in here so you can see all these public properties. So I'm just in the Corpus Christi area, and you can see as I zoom in, it gets a whole lot better. But I mean, look at this. There's a ton of them. And here's one right on the water. It tells you the park, it's 89 acres. Here's another one. And I'm sure a lot of locals, you might know about some of these things. Sometimes you don't. There's some over in the Tampa area I did not know were public parks, like that one I just showed you. Like here's a small little parcel, 1 acre, and it's right there on the water. And so these are areas that you could sit here and no one's allowed to say a word to you, that you can go fishing, certainly go wade fishing. And here's another one, 3 acres. I mean, all right here. So if I was on vacation or visiting someone in Corpus Christi, instead of having to sit there and wait on a Facebook group or, some other community to tell me where I can go fish, I literally pull this up, hit one button, which is that public access spots, and it shows me every single one. I mean, there's a ton here. This is amazing. You guys are lucky there in Corpus Christi, how many public spots. I mean, all that yellow, guys. I mean, here's another little small one. And this is cool. I mean, I love doing this. I love exploring and saying, wow, look at that. This is just 4 acres. These are small little pieces that are all local government owned city lands. So you're allowed to go out there. And obviously if you see some sign for whatever reason that says you're not, or temporarily shut down for fishing or boating or launching a kayak, obviously you need to obey those, but at least this gives you an idea of who owns this. And you could do the same thing as we did in Florida with the private properties. I'm not going to do that on all this because this is more about finding the land-based spots. But I mean, look at all these little 1 to 5 acre pieces of property just here in Corpus Christi. That's really, really fascinating. Here's some bigger ones. And a lot of times you'll see some red, and that usually means there's some sort of restriction. I don't know why this Aransas National Wildlife Refuge is restricted, but this one's interesting that it's federal owned, not state or city or county. And this one is owned by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. I'm willing to bet you can still go fish there, just based on what I know about properties like this owned by the Fed. But it does always tell you if there's some sort of restrictions. And a lot of times they're state or federal that have those. And there are some that you just flat out can't fish. They're rare, but usually it's because there's a military base there, and or like, over in Florida, you got Cape Canaveral with, the shuttle launches and rockets going off. They obviously don't want civilians over there messing around. This one says closed for whatever reason, but it's a non-government organization, the Nature Conservancy, interest, but 3,000 acres. Holy smokes. Here's some way inland. Look at these little small ones here. I'm going to keep zooming in. Wow, it's 11 acres, a little park right there on the ocean. 5 acres. That's so cool that you guys have all those little parks there, and that's upper there in Port O'Connor. So anyhow, as you can see, and I'm going in Houston, same type of deal. There's quite a few around the other side there of Galveston and Virginia Point. If you're listening, here's Smith Point. There's a couple. I mean, it's really, really cool. And then obviously if you found one that says, oh, wow, look at all these little public properties, you would then keep zooming in and say, wow, there's a road right there, and keep zooming in and say, well, I can go all the way down here on this Hawkins Camp Road and go fishing here in Robbins Park, right? I mean, just so cool. This opens up so many doors. And even for like camping, like we found some in Port Charlotte area where the little islands are state owned, or county owned or whatever, and you're allowed to camp there. And so it tells you any restrictions on camping or first come first serve if you got to make a reservation. But a lot of those are completely free too. So really, really neat there. So that is our lovely state of Texas, where I used to live for quite a few years. And Louisiana is a little bit tougher for those of you that live there. I've fished in Louisiana quite a few times. And, once you get down in the Martians, Louisiana, not Martians, marshes, Louisiana, as you guys know, I can only imagine how frustrating it is with all the private land stuff, but I do believe this will help. Louisiana has had quite a few different lawsuits and stuff about private land and these marshes. We talked about earlier about owning, land underneath water, and Louisiana is just one of those different states that has slightly different rules. And there's been a lot of anger, and I think even some litigation around that about who really owns what. But here's one, 762 acres right there near the river, and there are still plenty, especially once you start going up into some of the rivers and creeks. You'll be shocked at how many little public pieces of properties are there. Division of State Lands patent. 15,000 acres. Holy smokes, that's a lot. This one's closed, 16. So that is private conservation. And that's what I'm talking about. Private conservation, 16,000. This one's unknown. This is an interesting one. Let's keep playing around with this. 85. It's weird that so many of these in Louisiana are private. Let's see this one. Okay, this one's open. This is on the water, 205 acres. Interesting. Look at these way out here in the ocean. This one's open, 15,000. So it must be just talking about this whole Cat Bay here. So anyhow, that's Louisiana. So you can see this works there. We'll just kind of keep moving around. Let's see. There's Baton Rouge, New Orleans. Let's go to our little town of Biloxi. Wow, a ton of this stuff inland. Holy smokes. 532,000 acres, National Forest of Mississippi. That's a big tract of land there, folks. That's wild. So the good news is you can tell there are some little rivers and creeks. And I know for those of you who live there, in Biloxi, there are quite a few little fingers that go, pretty far up. And especially in the wintertime, hold a lot of fish. But even in here, I mean, you could see there's these little slivers like this yellow one, 2 acres, Pops Ferry Causeway. So there's 2 acres that you can fish there, and that's going to be good fishing a big chunk of the year. Here's another one over here, 17 acres. Wow, these 2 parks right back to back, one 17 and one 18 acres. But how cool is this? So if you're in Biloxi, on vacation or visiting friends, or maybe even live there, say, oh, wow, I didn't even know about this. These are all land-based areas. Here's another one over here, 61 acres. That's a pretty good size one. That's got a lot of, a lot of fishing areas there. And what's neat too, this is not just for land-based fishing. These are places that, and not all of them, obviously you need to follow state and county and, city rules, but in most of them, you could still legally launch a kayak. Many of them you can even camp. Obviously, once again, figure out the rules. I'm not an attorney and I don't know about every single one of these parcels here, but in many of these places, meaning you can use them for other things than just fishing. You could certainly wade fish around them. There's quite a few in Florida like that, where public property, but once you get out there, you can now even wade past that public property parcel into private properties, because once again, they don't own the water in most cases, with the exception of some Louisiana stuff. But look at all this. Wow. There's a ton of public property. That's wild. So that's all in Alabama. So we go up here, and there's a bunch. Here's one right down at the bottom. The wetland track. See, 463 acres. Yeah, there's quite a few up here in Mobile that are right here on the water. What's that one? 20 acres. That's a cool looking one there. Just from what I can tell, I mean, some nice water access. 50 acres. These are parks. Here's a little small track. 3 acres. I love finding those little small ones, because those are the ones that so many people either pass by or never, go back in. That one's a little bit closer to a main highway. So I take what I said back on this one in particular, but so many of these, you see them almost in the back of neighborhoods and stuff. There's a lot in Florida we found that are tucked back behind neighborhoods, and for whatever reason had a conservation deal with whoever, developer sold it, where, hey, we're not allowed to develop this and the city owns it. And these are places that you're allowed to go fishing. You're allowed to go wade fishing. You're allowed to go launch a kayak, etc. And I'm willing to bet a lot of them don't advertise it because they don't want a lot of people there. But that's the beauty of having, an app and a layer like this where you can find all of it. So that is, here's old Pensacola and Perdido, 24,000 acres. That is a lot. And I've been, Perdido. So I went and fished this area right here. Did a whole, if you're wondering how that was, it was in the summer, and I did a whole insider report that's on the site. It's private just for our members, but we had a great trip here in this area, and this would have been really nice to have, because I had to go drive around and look to see what the rules were on all these places. This would have been so nice to have. I had no idea about all these other ones right here. This is a 15 acres. I never in a million years would have known about this little spot right here, right on the water in that Perdido area. So cool. I will have to use this next time I go back. So we've already done some of Florida. Let's go into Georgia. Wow, a lot of Georgia is coastal area. This is nuts. And some pretty big tracts of property here. Once again, I love looking for little small ones. Look, some of these ones here in Savannah, around the river, and these marshes. Yeah, that's cool. Little spot there. That's a pretty big one, 247 acres. Tough to miss that one. That's a beach there on Tybee. So obviously, I think locals know about that one. But look at all these little spots here. This is so cool. 9 acres. And this was being interesting. I mean, Hilton Head, I'm sure a lot of you know it, but you go to some of these beach areas, and even like in South Florida, and they're, they make it tough for you to fish. Some of these resorts will put all their chairs all the way out to the end, and and sometimes even rope off areas and try to make it tough for you. But I mean, that's the beauty of this app is that, hey guys, you don't own all of this. In some cases they do, but I love the fact that you can pull this up and say, you know what, I'm allowed to be here, regardless of what your little cones say. And then once again, going inland, I mean, going in and just kind of looking for areas that are yellow, that are around like, lakes here. Like here's a rec park. You can tell there's a little lake there. And these are great little areas to go find little bass holes. I love doing that in Central Florida. So I'll keep going up here, and wow, a lot of yellow showing up in Charleston. Holy smokes. That's really cool. It's a ton of yellow spots all around here. This is French Quarter, right, of Charleston. This is the downtown area. 6 acres here to fish. I mean, you Charleston people, if you don't think you got a lot of land-based spots and city-owned, local-owned spots, you're wrong. There's a ton of, look at this little small one, 5 acres. Ooh, I like that. And all this is on the river over here. There's a ton of spots there in Charleston, South Carolina. Look, it goes way back up into these river systems here. Oh, that is cool. There's some really big stuff there. I hope you're getting an idea of just, and this is just fun for me. This is not premeditated. I didn't go do this beforehand. You can obviously tell I'm just doing this as I go. And you can even zoom out. Obviously, if you zoom out too far, it stops showing stuff. You need to kind of pick an area, but you guys go up in here into Myrtle, and we'll start getting up in here into North Carolina, Bird Island. Let's see here, a bunch of orange spots. What does these say? These are closed for whatever reason. And some of these you need to check with. I mean, we're obviously getting new data. Doesn't mean every one of these public property, in terms of if they open or close, is correct. Data is only as good as what these cities are doing with an updating this. So, if you did see something like that, like, hey, I want to check into that, make sure to call and find out, hey, is this really closed and why? And then when will it open again? Here's one in the Intracoastal, 2 different parks there. That looks nice. And of course here, Cape Fear. Wow, look at all this. You guys got quite a bit here in North Carolina. These are all places you can get out there and do a little land-based fishing. And it's cool to see them in the rivers too, so you're able to go there and enjoy it in some of the cooler months when the fish start pushing up into some of the rivers. Yeah, there's some good ones up here. All right. And as we continue to keep moving up, you will see a lot of publicly owned spots here. It's really, really wild. So we'll keep going up. Let's just see how far it goes here. So we're now into Virginia. Let's see if got it all in Virginia here. A lot of color here in Virginia. Let's keep going up and see what the latest is. See how far we go. So now we're in, oh wow, okay. So we got all the spots here. Cape May keeps going. And this is what, Connecticut? I was told there would be no. Oh, wow. So New York. Okay. So I was wrong. We've got it way up. I mean, New York, tons of land-based spots. Let's see if it goes all the way to Maine now. I guess our developers are working hard here. Let's see here. Massachusetts. Yep. Okay. Wow. All over Boston. Look at all that yellow. So cool. All right. So we have it all over the entire East Coast. Not going to be there in Nova Scotia. Just a stone's throw away from Manitoba. Oh, wow. So we have all the way to Maine. So there you go, folks. Learn something new every day as I'm doing this, like completely ad lib. But yeah, we have it everywhere. Go check it out. It's saltstrong.com is where you join to get the access to smart fishing spots. And as I said, this is just 2 of the layers. And just alone, the private part, right? The private land, that is what most apps are charging $100 a year for to have it nationwide like this. And this is just one of the many layers from the artificial reefs and boat ramps and oyster beds. I love the oyster beds, by the way, and seagrass, and then all the smart spots, and then the shaded relief and the 4K satellite and 1-foot contour lines and the marine charge. And then we have, all the tides and weather, everything you'd possibly need to succeed as an angler. And then we have all these waypoints and distance, and there's just so many things that you can do with this app. And we're constantly just listening to you guys, our members and soon to be members. If you're not one, go join us there today. And on top of all this, you'll save all kinds of money on your tackle with 20 or even up to 50% off all of our tackle. And of course, we have new shortcuts and new things that we're filming and real-time fishing reports going up every week in all these different areas. So check it out at saltstrong.com. Come join us and the 50,000 others. Otherwise, if there's anything we can do, current members, to help you or serve you, let us know. We are here to help. Pow!
'Cause fishing, it's in my soul. It was passed down to me from the days of old. Find us on the water if there was a way. It's been said my papa, he wrote the book on catching big reds and 20-pound snook. I wish I knew all the things he knew today. For he's the reason why we are this way. And he put fishing in her soul.